We're getting word that more than 100 people were killed, 140 injured after two blasts struck near the grave of the Iranian military commander, the late Iranian military commander Qasem Soleimani. Iranian state media captured the moment that one of the blasts happened near very crowded streets. You can hear the fear of the screams there. According to Iranian state media, officials describe the explosions. They are calling these explosions a terror attack. CNN's Nada Bashir is following this for us. Nada, what is the latest?
Well, this is certainly a developing story, John. We are still getting more details from officials and media on the ground in Iran. But in the last hour or so, we have seen that death toll steadily rising. At least 103 killed and 141 injured, according to state media in Iran, citing officials on the ground. Some of those injured are said to be in a critical condition, and we have seen that dramatic footage emerging from the scene, showing crowds running away from the site of the blast. We've seen ambulances and emergency services gathering, rushing people to nearby hospitals. Now, of course, we are still getting more details around the specifics around these twin blasts, according to state media, again citing officials on the ground. The first blast took place about 700 meters away from the burial site of the late Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani. The second blast took place about a kilometer away from the checkpoints and path in which pilgrims had been passing through to visit the burial site. Now, important to note that there would have been huge crowds at the time of these blasts. Today marks 4 years since the commander Qasem Soleimani was killed in a U.S. strike on Baghdad International Airport, ordered by then U.S. President Donald Trump. So we would have been expecting to see huge crowds around there. And of course, this comes at a time of heightened tensions in the region. And while we are still waiting to get more details around the specifics of the motive perhaps behind the attack, who may have carried out the attack, Iranian state media, again citing officials, have characterized this as a terrorist attack. But again, there are tensions mounting around the region, particularly when it comes to groups that are either allied to or backed by Iran. That is certainly the case here in Lebanon. We are today expecting to hear from the Secretary General of the Iran-backed group Hezbollah. Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah expected to speak in just about an hour or so. So we will be waiting to see what he has to say about the situation in Iran, and of course commemorating the death of Qasem Soleimani. Important to note, of course, that this is just a day after we saw another attack here in Beirut, in the building behind me. A senior Hamas commander, Saleh al-Aruri, killed in a strike on Tuesday evening. According to a U.S. official, that strike was carried out by Israel. Hamas certainly pointing the finger squarely at Israel, but at this stage, Israeli officials neither claiming responsibility nor denying responsibility for that strike. John?
Obviously, a number of developments in that region. Nada Bashir, thank you for being there. Keep us posted.
And let's discuss this further. Joining us now is retired Brigadier General Steve Anderson. General, good to have you today. First, just your reaction to this news out of Iran. The timing of this, especially on this day, as Nada mentioned, 4 years after the death of Soleimani. What do you make of this?
Well, thank you, Rahel. Obviously, a great concern that tensions could escalate and there would be more bloodshed, and somehow what's going on in the Gaza Strip escalates to something much bigger. But I can tell you right now, I mean, I don't know for sure, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the United States had absolutely nothing to do with this. My suspicion is that this is an internal issue within Iran, particularly if you look at what was targeted. Soleimani, who was taken down 4 years ago by the United States. But the last thing we want to do is take out civilian casualties like this and to escalate tensions. I mean, everything's already on edge right now after the assassination yesterday of al-Ruari in Beirut. And so there's no way the United States is behind this. And I suspect Israel as well. So again, my inclination is this is an internal issue within Iran because they have a lot of competing factions within that country.
And as you mentioned, I mean, that senior Hamas leader who was killed in southern Beirut, how does that complicate any conversations or negotiations about the hostages who are still in Gaza?
Well, it does complicate that significantly. I would point out, though, that no doubt the Israelis are behind this, but it was a precision attack, and they very rightfully just targeted Aruri and two of his compatriots. and they didn't take out any other casualties. And so their focus has been on Hamas. And I think they've made that very, very clear that they are trying to minimize casualties in Beirut. I've been there a couple of times the last couple of years, and it's a very vibrant city, but everybody knows, where the Hezbollah areas are, where the Christian areas are, where the Shia or the Sunni areas are. And so everybody knows that this is not, this is where Hezbollah is hanging out, so to speak, and where Hamas, I'm sure that the headquarters there was well known. So the fact that they took it out and they minimized the casualties they did, I think is a good sign that Israel's doing everything they can to take down Hamas without escalating tensions further.
What are you going to be listening for? Not to mention in the next hour or so, we expect to hear from Hassan Nasrallah. Certainly when he speaks in this environment, a lot of people pay attention. I mean, what are you going to be listening for when he speaks?
Well, obviously, we want to minimize Lebanon's involvement in this, and that's what I'll be listening for. How does he attribute this attack, and what is he calling his people to do? There's already a lot of tension on the northern border of Israel, and of course, there are 40,000 missiles aimed at Israel from north in the Lebanese area, in Hezbollah-controlled areas. So I'm going to be looking for, what is he calling, his compatriots in Hezbollah? What is he asking the folks in the West Bank that are obviously in support of Hamas? And then further, what is he saying to his leadership in Iran? Because, of course, Iran is behind all of these activities. What I want to see is hopefully a de-escalation of tensions and a recognition that Israel did everything they can to minimize casualties and focus only on Hamas leadership.
General Steve Anderson, thank you for the time today.
Thank you.